The pace of westward settlement quickened after the American Civil War. More and more Americans hoped to make a new life for themselves, farming on the western frontier of the Great Plains. Many soon discovered, however, that farming in the West was remarkably difficult. It seemed to many American farmers that no matter how hard they worked, they were never quite able to achieve economic success. Beginning in the 1870s, farmers like Mary Elizabeth Lease, a struggling Kansas farmer and mother of 4, began organizing to effect positive change. The most well-known of these organizations created to help American farmers were the Grange, the Farmers Alliance, and finally the Populist Party, one of the most influential challenges to America's two-party political system in its history. The first national organization of farmers, the Grange, was organized to address the isolation of farm life. The Grangers sponsored dances and gatherings to attack the boredom and isolation of rural life. It was only natural that politics and economics were discussed in these settings, and the Grangers soon realized that they faced many of the same problems: falling prices for the crops they grew, high railroad freight rates to ship the crops to market, high interest rate on the money they borrowed, and a steadily restricted money supply that made it harder and harder for farmers to get out of debt. The Granger movement identified the railroads as the chief villains. Grangers lobbied state legislatures for regulation of the railroad industry. The Farmers Alliance went one step further. The Alliance championed many of the same issues as the Grangers, but also entered into the political arena. Members of these alliances won seats in state legislatures across the Great Plains and fought to strengthen farmers' voice in politics. Members of the alliance, like the Grangers before them, were particularly worried about debt. Looking for solutions to this condition, farmers began to attack the nation's monetary system. Farmers, in short, wanted to expand the nation's money supply. They wanted to create inflation. They wanted, in other words, for prices to go up. Now, why would they want things to get more expensive? Farmers reasoned like this. If a farmer owed $3,000 on his land and could earn $1 for every bushel of wheat sold at harvest, he needed to sell 3,000 bushels to pay off the debt. If inflation pushed the price of a bushel of wheat up to $3, however, he would only need to sell 1,000 bushels to pay off the debt. To create inflation, farmers suggested that the money supply be expanded to include dollars not backed by gold. They wanted silver coined into money along with gold. This would have allowed more dollars to be created, expanding the money supply and generating inflation. The People's, or Populist Party, the 19th century's culmination of these efforts, was formed in 1892. The Populist Party built its platform around a crusade for silver coinage, as well as a number of other reforms. Populists demanded an income tax on the wealthy, a constitutional amendment allowing for the direct election of senators, democratic reforms such as the initiative, in which citizens could directly introduce debate on a topic in their state legislatures, and the referendum, which would allow citizens, rather than their representatives, to vote on a bill. They also called for government ownership and regulation of the nation's railroads.